All right, guys, so today we're going to do some computations with fractions to kind of prepare us for solving equations that have fractions in them. So kind of take a look at the screen here. Everybody should have a graphing calculator. And again, we're going to be reviewing some functions and key buttons on here that can help with this. This does operate more so like a computer than a traditional calculator. So we do have to turn it on, and equally as important, we have to turn it off because it's got batteries. And if we don't remember to turn it off, it's going to quickly die, and we're going to go through a lot of batteries. So on button's pretty simple right here in the bottom left. So we hit on, and you see the cursor appear on your screen. To turn it off, if you notice right above the on button, there is a word off in blue. Now to access any of the blue functions like off, we have to hit the blue key first, which is called our second button. It's kind of like each button has multiple um, like functions to it. So in order to access the different functions, this on button also can be an off button, but we have to hit the blue button first and then hit the button. And then you'll see your cursor disappear, which means that it is off. So again, equally important, guys, that you shut your or you turn off your calculator so that our batteries don't wear out. So I mentioned that we're going to be looking at computation of fractions. So doing addition of fractions, subtraction of fractions, multiplication of fractions, and division of fractions. When we have a fraction, a lot of you are used to that fraction button that we had on the simple blue calculators. When we are looking at a fraction, it is simply a division. Okay, so if I have 2/3, it's 2 divided by 3. Okay, 2, let me turn my calculator on here. So 2 divided by 3. Now, when we are looking to add fractions together or multiply fractions together, we need to make sure that our calculator understands that it's not just 2 divided by 3, but it's the fractional 2 divided by 3. So anytime, and you're going to hear me say this till you're probably sick of it, but when we use fractions in this calculator, we want to make sure that we're putting them in parentheses. So 2/3 would actually look like this, plugging it in the calculator. So parentheses kind of make it a group that, hey, this is all one number, one term. And then again, a fraction is simply a division. So that is the bar that you use in the middle. So parentheses 2 divided by 3 parentheses. All right, so let's take a look at our note sheet. So this can be found, I believe, in page 12. Let me look. We are looking at page 12. So we are looking at page 12. So again, when you're working with fractions, you need to make sure, that we had talked about if you have fractions, your answer should be most likely in fraction form. So let's take a look at this example. Again, I did put these pictures in here so you can refer back to your note sheet, but I'm going to walk you through this. So if this was my problem, I want to add 9/7 to 2/5. Again, when I'm plugging this into my calculator, I want to put each fraction in parentheses so that it knows it's one term being added to my second term. They just happen to be fractions. So I'm going to go ahead and put my parentheses, 9 divided by 7, and it looks like a fraction in my calculator. My addition operation in the middle, and then again, my second fraction here of 2/5. Notice that it's in parentheses. Now when I hit enter, I get 1.685714286, and then it cuts it off from there. Nobody wants to write a decimal answer like that, right? And also kind of a good rule of thumb is that, again, if we're working with fractions, our answer should be in fractions. If I'm working with integers, my answers are probably going to be integers. And we talked about if you have decimals and you're adding or subtracting decimals, most likely you're going to get a decimal answer. For your fractions, you actually have to do an extra step to turn it back into a fraction. So again, if you get a decimal kind of type answer, we're going to turn it back into a fraction. And this math button right here on your calculator, this is the key function that allows you to change it back to a fraction. So we're going to hit math. That first option there says turn to a fraction, arrow fractions. That's a yes, we want to do that. So we're going to hit enter, which is the bottom right key. And you'll see it come up on your screen. And this kind of means turn my answer into a fraction, yes. So anytime you're saying yes to yourself, that's what I want to do, you're going to hit the enter button. And you see that it turns it back into a fraction of 59/35. This is the answer that I would be looking for. If you're adding those two fractions there at the top, 9/7 plus 2/5, it's going to be equal to, again, 59/35. So when we're working with equations that have fractions, or we're working with operations of fractions, adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing fractions, we want to make sure that our answer is in the same form. And this calculator makes it pretty easy once you know the key functions to do that. Oh, it's not actually where I wanted to go. All right, so let's take a look at some more examples. And we're going to practice basic computations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division using this graphing calculator to give you some more chance. Because for some of you, this is completely new. For those of you that had me in 9th grade and now you're in 10th grade, you have had some experience with a graphing calculator. But it never hurts to kind of refresh how you use these calculators to help you. All right, so take a look at this first one here. We have 7/6 plus -1/2. So again, anytime you're looking at fractions, you can write it or envision it, put in your calculator, however you want to do it, but we need parentheses around those individual fractions. So plugging in our calculator, and I want you to try this with us so that you are getting practice of entering in fractions. So we have parentheses 7 divided by 6, plus, here's my second fraction. And again, if you notice the fraction is negative, we want to include that negative side inside of my parenthesis because it is part of my fraction. The operation is the only thing that goes outside of my parentheses there. I hit enter, I get a decimal. So again, because I am adding fractions, I would like my answer to be in the same format, in a fraction format. So I hit math, turn it to a fraction, yes, so I hit enter, enter again, and you get the answer of 2/3. Okay, take a look at example 2 here. We have 25/6 times 6/5. So again, parentheses can also be used to show the operation of multiplication. You don't visually see any other signs there, so you should know that that is multiplication. So going ahead and putting this in my calculator, again, 25/6 is also a fraction, so I would want to put parentheses around it. So I'm going to draw it on here so you can see. So we're going to do 25/6 times 6/5. Notice that both of my fractions are in parentheses, and I get the answer of 5. Now, guys, if you get an answer that is a whole number, you don't have to turn it into a fraction. We like whole numbers, and whole numbers are easy to write down. We understand them, so there's no need to make it more complex and put it in a fraction. So if you do get a whole number, you can absolutely leave it. In fact, I always cheer when I get a whole number because that means maybe my computation of fractions is done. So again, whole numbers you can leave, but if you do get a decimal, we're going to change it back. So looking at this third example, we have 3/5 minus 1/7. So again, when I'm plugging that in my calculator, I need to make sure that I have my 3/5 in parentheses. My operation comes in the middle, and then group that last fraction in parentheses, 1 divided by 7. And I get a decimal answer for this one. So this would be an example of a type where I need to change it back into a fraction. So math, enter, answer to a fraction, yes. So I hit enter, and you get the fractional answer of 16/35. Okay, the next one, addition of two fractions. So 1/5 plus 5/6. So 1/5, putting it in parentheses. I'm adding with it 5/6. Again, I get a decimal. So math button, fraction, enter, and we get the answer of 31/30. Again, if I'm going a little fast, I'm pretty swift at entering in the calculator. If you are learning, I encourage you to kind of pause it, practice putting it in the calculator, making sure that you can get to the answer that I am, so that when you do your practice assignment, you're not struggling. The nice thing also about this calculator is that you can see my work typed out. You can compare it with your calculator, and you can kind of work through it with me and visually compare the calculators. All right, so this next one here, we have 9/28 divided by 1/2. So the same idea, I want to make sure I put my parentheses around my fractions. I'm gonna go ahead and clear my calculator out. If you ever want to clear your screen, you can hit this clear button and it takes everything off. Sometimes I like to do that if I get overwhelmed by all of the work in there and I just want to focus on my new problem. So 9/28 is my first fraction. Notice I put it in parentheses. I need a division sign and then another set of parentheses to include my last fraction in there. So just take a minute and look at my problem in my calculator compared to the written problem. My division or my fractional bars are sideways because again, it is that division button, right? And then my division sign, you're also used to that kind of showing up on calculators of all types to represent the division, but it does look a little bit different in your calculator as it does on paper. So double check that you haven't entered in. If you hit enter, we get a decimal form answer. Changing it back to a fraction, I hit math, enter, enter, and I get 9/14. Okay, the next one here, if we look at it, we have 4/5 times 5/7. Again, we have a fraction buddied up directly against a fraction. That would be the operation of multiplication. So again, putting it in my calculator, I am simply putting in my fractions in parentheses and using division as my fractional bar. And then we're going to multiply it, again, making sure that sign is outside of my brackets there. So 4/5 times 5/7. So again, looks different than how it's written on paper, but this is how you would enter it in your calculator. I get a fraction, or I get a decimal answer, so math, enter, enter, and I get the answer of 4/7. Okay, two more practice problems for us here. So we've got 3/8 plus negative 2/9. So we're going to plug it in. 3/8, that first fraction in parentheses. Then we're going to have our addition outside, and then our second fraction is actually shown in parentheses there. So we're going to type it in exactly how we see it. Hit enter, I get a decimal. So I'm going to hit math, enter, enter, and you get the answer of 11/72. Okay, last one here, 3/4 plus 2. So I could do my fraction part in parentheses, 3/4. My addition sign out. Now 2 is a regular integer, right? So you don't have to put that in parentheses. We can enter it in just like we always have with integers. And we get 2.75. So turning it back into a fraction, we get 11/4. So again, rule of thumb is that when you're working with fractions, oftentimes you are going to get a fractional answer. Your calculator is initially going to show it to you as a decimal, so take it back, hit that math button, hit enter twice, and you'll get it back into the fractional form for your answer. If you end up like a whole number, like example number 2, you can keep it. You don't have to change it back to a fraction. That is the only time where we can kind of keep the answer in the form that we have. So just kind of a quick recap. We have a couple minutes here left on my recording. Here is your assignment. You're just going to use the key functions on your graphing calculator, just like we reviewed today, and do all of the different operational computations that you see. So you'll have all sorts of operations in there. Use your calculator to write your answer. Again, if you get a whole number, you can leave it as a whole number. If you do get a decimal, use that math button and turn it back into a fraction. If you need any more help or guidance with your graphing calculator, please reach out for help. And again, if your batteries are low, it should tell you that your batteries are low before it completely dies, but let me know if you need some more. Good luck, and let me know if you need anything.